the Director for Human Resources for MSF Hong Kong. Um, Mahirap talunin si Miss Anne. So hi, I'm gonna share with you this afternoon because I also started as a field worker with MSF. So just a little bit about myself before I continue with my presentation. I graduated Bachelor of Arts, major in legal management from the University of Santo Tomas in Manila. I worked in BPOs and call centers for about 12 years before joining MSF. So I started as a call center agent for 9 months. So for those who are thinking na mababang trabaho ang pagiging call center agent, hindi. That actually gave me a starting point to my career in human resources. So after 9 months of being a call center agent, I saw an opening uh, in the human resources department of eTelecare at that time. That was my first job. Um, I then joined human resources as an HR assistant. So from being HR assistant, I actually worked my way up until I became HR manager in my last position with Bank of America. So while I was in Bank of America, I actually started feeling uneasy with my work, thinking that there's probably something I can do better because minsan there will be time in your career where magsasawa ka din in trying to appease everyone, where you have people moving from one job to another for without considering yung career progression nila or the stability they would have in terms of benefits. Um, so for me, nagsawa ako for a time. And my sister at that time was already working with MSF. She's an anesthesiologist, so she is a medical profile. And I was sharing with her my frustration about work, and she was like, maybe you want to join MSF. And I said, I'm not medical. I'm not a doctor. Um, takot ako sa dugo, so hindi ako pwede maging to be in a hospital setting. And she goes like, no, we have offices. We can actually we need HR people. And I said, okay, I'll try it out. So like Anne, I sent in my application. And then I got a phone call from our Hong Kong office also at that time, and they did their interview on phone. And also it was about almost 10 years ago. So at that time, you don't have video call. They will call you on your mobile. So given the connection problems we had at that time, it was a really hard interview. It was a really hard discussion to have it on your mobile phone for like an hour. Someone talking to you about what you want to do, why you applied for the role. So there, and I really didn't expect to be shortlisted because I felt that call was not the best, given the connection issues we had. So I was surprised when they said that they're gonna have the assessment center in Manila and they would like me to participate in the assessment. And I said, oh, okay, sure. And after that assessment, I got confirmed for the role and eventually got offered a role for my first mission in Kenya. Um, at that time, I left my job with Bank of America, and I actually had a colleague told me that, bakit mo to gagawin? You don't seem like the humanitarian type. So that actually hit me, and I was like, what do you exactly mean by being the humanitarian, not being the humanitarian type? So she kind of um, implied na maarte ako. So hindi ako mabubuhay sa buhay ng missions, like sometimes possibly staying in a tent or going your through areas where it may not be as paved a way like what we have in in Manila or whatever. So I said in my head, well, watch me, I'll do this. So I went on my first mission thinking I'll just do this for one mission, um, because I kind of had some doubt because of that. And I said, sige, I'll just do this for one mission. If I don't finish it, it's okay. At least I tried. So here I am. I ended up still with MSF. I'm turning 10 years by I turned 10 years this year, so I will in total for MSF. And from Kenya, I went to India for my next mission, and then I also went to Pakistan after. And then from there, from the Pakistan mission, the Hong Kong office had a vacancy for HR. And then my career manager at that time asked me if I would be interested to work in the office. And I said, maybe for a short period of time, I would gladly work in the office and help you guys out. So I applied for the role and eventually got the role. And somehow then again, I'm faced with a situation where I only intended to stay for 2 years. I am now 7 years working in the Hong Kong office. So I went from being a career manager to being the HR team manager, the field HR team manager. And then now for the past over 2 years, I am the HR director for the region. So there, that's a little bit about myself. So next slide, please. So yeah, so sorry, my presentation may be a little bit different from Anne. So I'll be talking about where we work, my role in MSF, and the challenges I've experienced and how we overcome the barriers, especially in human resources. These are pictures from my mission in India. The first picture is from my mission in India. That is from Mon. It's uh, the northeastern state in northern state in India. It's actually when you look actually the map of India, it looks like the appendix towards the east, and it's the most remote village in the most remote state of India. So to get to this particular village, you need to from Delhi, you need to travel 5 hours to Dibrugarh. From Dibrugarh, you will be we stay we you need to do another 7 hours of land travel to Mon Hospital, to Mon village. In this village, actually, it's already towards the border to Myanmar. So the people actually don't look like the don't look Indians. They look more Chinese already at this area. On the second picture is from our hospital in Kibera. No, not in Kibera. It's from our hospital in Pakistan where we had quadruplets. So you would see that these are the cute little babies as well in from Pakistan. And last picture is from Kenya, if I'm not mistaken, in our maternity ward in Kibera. So next slide, please. So what do? We actually intervene in natural disasters, epidemics. As you've seen most recently, that would include Ebola and COVID-19. Well, COVID-19 is a pandemic, but still, we also responded to that. Next slide, please. We also went intervene in conflict zones and refugees and IDPs, like similar to. So I'm not gonna go into detail as Anne has already explained where we work. Next slide, please. And next slide again. Okay, so who do we recruit? Like what Regina mentioned, that we don't only recruit medical profiles, we also recruit paramedicals and non-medicals. So what do this list is actually not exhaustive. It's actually more than this, but this is to give you an idea that it's not limited to medical. So we do have MDs or medical doctors, pediatricians, anesthesiologists, gynecologists, and surgeons. For paramedicals, we have the nurses and OT nurses, midwives, lab technicians, psychologists, pharmacists, epidemiologists, and also now most recently, I think if I'm not mistaken, for paramedical, we are also looking at infection control nurses, which is a big demand right now given COVID. And also we're for non-medicals, we are looking for logisticians. The definition of logistician in MSF is quite broad. So it can also cover even architects. We also cover electricians, and we also cover, if I'm not mistaken, IT IT profiles under logisticians. And then we also have water and sanitation specialists, finance coordinators, human resources and administration coordinators. So under finance coordinators, that's where the accountants, the financial controllers come in. We and then for HR and administration, of course, you have the different facets of HR, which have like comp and ben focus. You have the training and development focus, and then you also have the HR BPs or HR business partner profiles. Next slide, please. So my role in MSF. So it's the generic human resource management. So I'm in charge of the HR strategy in the country, where we do the planning and sourcing, which entails the number of headcount needed in the field, making sure that you have enough ratio, because it's not just because you need 3 people, you would be getting 3 people. You also have to factor in when someone goes on leave, or if your backup people as well that needs to be available. You have to plan for those things so that your operations will not be hampered when something comes up. Staff development, it's important to have staff development, because in order to retain people, you need to make sure that they also have a career path going for them. And of course, very important, MSF as a responsible employer, making sure that we are paying our staff correctly, they are treated fairly, and we are able to provide a safe working environment for our staff. In terms of legal matters, of course, we do have the mission contracts and agreements that we have to adhere to. Management of in-country lawyer in cases. So if we have cases, it's the HR department who's also working with our legal counsel in the country to make sure that all the cases are progressing correctly. And of course, coordinating legal matters with our headquarter legal team, because we also have a legal team in our headquarters. So I have to make sure that all the information with our local legal counsel is updated in the headquarter legal team as well, so that everyone is aware of what's happening and at what stage the case is progressing. So on the top left picture, that's me in our clinic in Kibera. Kibera is one of the biggest slums in Kenya. It's in Nairobi. Sorry, can you hear me correctly? Oh, can you hear me clearly? Sorry, I heard feedback.
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, thanks. And on the upper left, upper right side of the picture is me and my team in Mon. Sorry, I got muted. Anyway, so on the right side of the picture is my team in Mon. So as you can see, that was during the Owling Festival or the Harvest Festival in India. Next slide, please. So what are the normal challenges HR people encounter in mission countries? Of course, number one is gender balance in staff rosters. Because the gender balance, there are some countries where, of course, there is sensitivity between genders and women working. So one of those that have these types of gender balance in the staff roster is, for example, in Pakistan. So we have to make sure that our staff, if we do have female staff in the roster, we have to make sure that they are protected, because there is a prevalence of harassment and sexual harassment towards female staff and patients. So it's not just the staff, it's also the patient sometimes. The availability of female medical staff in patriarchal or cultural sensitive contexts, like for example I would say in India, and sometimes to some extent also in Kenya, where the female staff can only be seen by a female gynecologist or a female midwife. So we are a bit we have to make sure that we are sensitive in ensuring that we get the correct staff and in terms of the gender but still trying to maintain balance in terms of roster. Perceptions of inequality. here in the Philippines, you would know that if once you apply, you have to make sure, as long as you're qualified for the job, you would be able to more or less get the job, regardless of your gender. Um, but in mission countries, we have to consider, there is a balance between, and we should not have people think that there is such inequality between local and international staff, um, or the difference between tribal and religious affiliations, because sometimes would people would some staff would accuse us that we tend to favor one tribe over another, that's or one religion over another. So that's why whenever we do our hiring, we also check into the balance of our acceptance rate within the different tribal groups and religious groups. So there's also perceptions of inequality on recruitment practices, because it's not as easy as whoever is the most skilled will be taken. So we have to also make sure that we are able to get the right people but still maintain the other balance. And of course, staff security and safety, because some of the countries we work in are called high insecure contexts. So we have to make sure that the primary goal is making sure that staff are safe and they are secure in their work environments. Next slide, please. So how do we overcome barriers? So in terms of the gender balance in the staff roster, so we actually consciously consider gender in hiring in the country. So like what I said, that we make sure that for a certain profile, we do make sure that we are able to hire the gender where the patients are more comfortable in. Zero tolerance policy on harassment and sexual harassment on mission. It's not subject to interpretation. If it's reported, we make sure that the proper investigations are done and we do the right disciplinary process in as fast as we could. And then, of course, we make sure that we have availability of outside mission reporting systems to make sure that the staff don't feel like if they report within the mission, they are not heard. So we have established systems where they can report outside of the mission country. Next slide, please. Perceptions of inequality. So we make sure that our transparency on the recruitment practices, we post them, we make sure that everyone is aware of them and are actually, if there are any questions, we actually we actually address those questions. Having an inclusive approach to issues and concerns. So we do have dialogues with our staff, have proper data management and analysis. So we post our data and we post whether if we have, like, for example, yearly we have statistics on number one, gender balance. Number two is the distribution within nationalities in our profiles. So we do share that information. Ensuring fairness and respect in all policies and procedures and interactions with all our staff. So just a quick side note below, well, on my leftmost picture is my team in Hong Kong. They're the best. They're such a lovely team, and I love working with them. And in the middle is my team in Pakistan. They're also an amazing team. I love working with them. Two of those team members actually are already well, on the leftmost and the leftmost Babar, he is now also an international mobile staff. So he's now an expat working for MSF from being HR manager in Islamabad. Next is Imran. He is from HR assistant. He's now the HR manager of one of the mission coordination in Islamabad as well. And on the one on the right, Amna, she is now while she was working with us in Islamabad, she was taking up her law degree. If I'm not mistaken, she's already a lawyer and in fact also an HR manager in one of our missions in Islamabad. And on the last picture, that's me on my mission in South Sudan. So I had a short mission in South Sudan at that time, and these are the lovely ladies that were working with me in the HR office. So next slide, please. On staff security, on the other hand, staff security is the primary concern. Well, I have a field coordinator who once shared with me that in order to save lives, we cannot lose lives. That's why staff security is the primary concern. So we have security plans in place, and these are regularly updated based on the situation on ground. We coordinate with all parties in the community to ensure the safety of every movement of MSF. Availability of safe rooms and bunkers in our houses, with food provisions to make sure that there is a safe room in our living space to make to for the staff to take refuge on in case of attacks or anything. And then in some if in some contexts where it's quite difficult for women to take up public transport, we provide public transport to female staff. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah. So thank you for your patience. This is me in the Owling Festival, or the Harvest Festival in Mon Town. Funny story about this picture. It's not about This is actually not me asking for the picture to be with them. They actually asked me to take a picture with them because they think I look like they're ladies, and so yeah, so they post for this picture with me. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.